Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. Let me ask you this. Have you as a parent ever gotten into this mode where everything your child does annoys you, where you judge your children nonstop, where you find that they are just too much and you actually don't even like how they're acting? Well, you're not alone. I know how hard it is for us parents when we get stuck in judgment. We just feel like we want to protect our children, but actually we end up being the ones who judge them the most. Well, if you're a parent who struggled with judgment, stick around because I'm going to show you how you can turn it around in this episode. Coming up next, a mom who says that her 7-year-old daughter negotiates herself out of every task, and this mother is worried that her daughter is too much. Joining me now is Chrissa, a mom who says that whenever she tells her 7-year-old daughter to do something, anything, her daughter often negotiates herself out of doing the task. Sounds just like my daughter. Welcome, Chrissa. Tell us what's going on.
Hello, thank you for having me here, Dr. Shefali. So my daughter has just turned 8. She's a very strong-willed child, ready to fight for what she wants, and she will negotiate absolutely everything. So most of the decision-making, small or big, end up in arguments and in protesting from her own part. And when she feels not being listened to or not getting her own way, she shows her disappointment very clearly. And she might do things that actually worry me. So, for example, she might walk away when we are outside the house, or she might stop walking or refuse to come with me or follow me. Let's say if we come back from school on the way back home, she'll shout or distance herself from me. And then it's in these moments that I feel that I lose the capacity of empathize with her. I find her overdramatic ways too much for me to actually manage, and I feel like I'm not emotionally there for her.
Okay. So you have a 7-year-old daughter who is kind of strong-willed, doing her own thing, always trying to negotiate herself to kind of challenge your ways, and that really triggers you. So when that triggers you, how do you react?
I get very angry because I think in the moment, it is just inconvenient sometimes. For example, if it happens on the way back from school, then it's that time that I need her to just follow me and do what she needs to be doing. But there are other times I feel that I'm trying to understand where she's coming from, but I find her over dramatic way of expressing herself really hard to manage. So I think like I'm having I feel like I put up a wall between the two of us, and that makes me quite sad when that finishes, because I often feel guilty after that end.
Okay, so let me ask you, when she's over dramatic, what kind of judgments are passing through your mind?
About her, that she's too much. She can't do that to other people. She can't always have her own way. She's very stubborn. She's very challenging, or she doesn't listen. So all those things.
Okay, very good. Now let me ask you, do you think any of those things were said about you when you were a child?
That's a very interesting question, because I think deep inside, I probably was this child, but somehow I stopped being this child, being the oldest out of 3.
Why do you think you stopped being this child?
Because I think I was afraid of what my parents, of the consequences of my behavior.
Yes. So let's just pause for a second. When you think about yourself as a child, you remember parts of you that are like how your daughter is now. Overly expressive, over the top, having an attitude and an answer for everything, out-talking her way out of issues and trouble and work, with a mind that was active and empowered in a way to express herself.
I think I was silenced in a way. I thought as a child that I wanted to be that person. I wanted to do that, but I was not allowed to do that.
Exactly. And that's what you are trying to do with your daughter. You are silencing her because you have judgment around these behaviors, because you experienced judgment when you were young. The only difference is because you were a good girl, perhaps, and you were scared, that you complied and you suppressed that fire in you. But when you see her acting like that, it freaks you out because you've so suppressed your fire that you don't want her to now go through the same trouble that you went through. You don't want her to be judged like you felt judged. You don't want her to feel lesser than and shamed like you were. So now you're becoming the shamer, the judger, the suppressor, the silencer.
I always feel this guilt that comes afterwards, or the fact that I cannot connect with her that in these moments. Like I'm trying so hard to connect, where I'm feeling like, oh, I'm not connecting right now. Why am I not doing that? This is what she needs. So I know what she needs. The block is that I cannot give this emotional connection to her. And this is what actually makes me really sad.
Yes, and because you use the words, you shut down, you freeze, you put up a wall, she perhaps, and I'm not saying for sure, she probably becomes even more dramatic, more acting out, more defiant, because she's trying to connect with you. She's trying to say, hey, listen to me. And you're not reachable. You know, when we feel that people go away from us emotionally or physically, we begin to yell more. We begin to scream more. We have to act even more distressed, which looks dramatic, because we feel unless we scream, unless we're dramatic, no one will hear us. And it's kind of that dynamic that's happening now. And your shutting down has nothing to do with her, really. It has to do with the judgment you have around that behavior because of how you were judged for that behavior.
That's probably it. The question, though, is practically what I can do to support her in those moments.
The first step is to notice and become aware of your judgments. So if you can be honest, imagine your daughter in front of you. She's just been dramatic. She's just been emotional and she's walked away. Okay? Now, what are the first thoughts that come into your mind? She is what? Inappropriate? What are the words that come to your mind?
Probably too much.
Okay.
Why does she need all this? Yeah.
Okay, so she's too much. Why is she going on and on like this? So do you hear the judgment in you?
Yeah.
Do you hear that you're actually not understanding what she needs? You're just judging her behavior? And then you have a feeling. After the thought comes the feeling. So what is the feeling then? That you're probably being manipulated, or you're probably being bullied, or you're probably being abused in some sort of way, or being used, right? That's the feeling. And then you have deeper feelings of anger, perhaps. This is why you're disconnecting, because you're stepping on a train of these reactions and she sees you disappearing from presence. She sees that you're checking out. You're actually getting angry with her, which makes her act out more. You see, parents and children, more than other people, are this constant cause and effect. It's like these dominoes affecting each other constantly. And your vibration, your frequency, your emotional tone is immediately impacting your child, and then hers is impacting you. And it's this back and forth volley that feels suffocating. But let me tell you, as hard as it is for you, you can still walk out. You can still get in your car. You can go talk to your adult girlfriends. You can have a glass of wine and vent. She has nowhere to go. She's a little girl trapped in your house. And she is prey to you. All our children are prey to us until they turn adults. And instead of us understanding them, we force them to comply to us, but we don't see how we are being abusive and neglecting and judgmental and shaming. So this is an opportunity for you to realize that you live with these judgments because of how you were raised. What you would have wanted as a child the most was freedom. Freedom to be you. Freedom to have emotions, to act out, to be big, to be too much. You see how you, and let me tell you, most women as little girls were told that we were too much. And this is why the world kind of looks the way it does, because we've had issues with our voice. We've had issues being subjugated. And we've had issues entering our voice, our knowing, our inner trust, and our authority. And without you realizing it, your judgment and scorn of your daughter is really a replay of that message of women are too much, girls should not be too much. And the last thing we want to do as feminist mothers is give our girls that message that they are too much.
No, absolutely. I don't want to get this message, but I do feel this sadly sometimes. And I'm trying the best to balance that out within myself. And I so fear that I might lose this connection with her, or I might not build the connection that I actually wanted to have with my mum and I craved to have. So it's controversial in a way that I do need this connection with her, but at the same time, I'm just, distancing myself from her.
You're resisting because your mother distanced herself from you. And you're so afraid that it'll happen again, but you are replaying the pattern. So the first thing we can do is become aware of our judgments, as we've just done. And the second thing I offer you is another way to look at her behavior. So let's together brainstorm. And I want every parent out there to think of the one problematic trigger they have in their life with anybody, parent or partner, and think of a way to reframe it. So, for example, if there's a kid who you have that you're constantly being triggered because they're quote unquote lazy, they're not cleaning up after them. Saying they're lazy is one way to judge them. But there's another more helpful, more empowering way to judge them, which could be, you know what? I know I'm judging them, but I'm going to reframe it as they're taking care of themselves. They're resting. They're relaxing. A tidy room is not important to them because they're not anxious like I am. They're not OCD, right? So we can reframe things. So let's try to reframe your daughter's experience of acting out or negotiating. What are some other ways you can look at this behavior?
She's assertive for sure.
Okay, beautiful. Wait, slowly. So let's look at her as assertive. So let me ask you, assertive girls are what kind of girls? What kind of women do assertive girls grow up into being?
Powerful. They know what they want.
Beautiful. So isn't that a positive?
Absolutely. They can stand up for themselves.
Okay, very good. They can stand up for themselves. They can get what they want. They're powerful. They know what they want. Okay, what's another way you can reframe her behavior? What about when she negotiates with you and tries to get out of doing a job? One way to look at that is manipulative. One way to look at that is lazy. One way to look at that is procrastinating. What are some more empowering ways to look at it?
She needs to process it, or it's not the right time for her, or she finds something else more interesting this particular time.
Beautiful. But let me ask you, little girls who grow up into women who can negotiate what they want are what kind of women?
Leaders.
Exactly. Isn't negotiating a fantastic skill? Now, just because she can out-negotiate you, that's not her fault, right? Just because she's so smart and she gets her way, that's actually a strength.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what I'm trying to offer you and to offer all parents out there, that ultimately the lens with which we look through to our lives is our choice. There can be always something negative in every life situation, but it's up to us to wear the lenses that allow us to focus on the positive and to turn something into a strength. And now you can help her. You can say, you know what? I love that you're standing up for yourself. I love that you're negotiating. So let's have a battle of negotiation. And you can put a big board up and you can put mom on one side and her on the other side, and you can have a debate. And you can have somebody view the debate and see who's the winner. You can encourage this. You can play with this. You can manage it. But instead, what you're doing is you're judging it. You're shutting down from it because you're having your own freeze reaction from your own childhood. And then you are distancing from her. You're not seeing the beauty in your child. I'm seeing plenty of beauty in this strong-willed 7-year-old.
No, I totally agree with that. So I think it's more that I don't want to break that into her. I don't want to change her. I just feel myself feels trapped in this situation because of my obviously own childhood experiences.
Yes. And this is your breakthrough. This is your invitation to change. This is your opportunity to repivot. She's giving you the mirror to show you where you need to grow. She's showing you, mommy, come, join me. You are assertive. You too are a badass. You too are a warrior. Come on, let's be warrior sisters together. But instead, you're just shutting her down and making her oppress herself. And it's time for you actually to realize, wow, she's liberated. I need to liberate myself.
I agree. That's a very difficult challenge. One.
Well, your daughter is inviting you to join her. She's already flying free in the skies and she's waiting for her mother to liberate herself and join her. So it's your choice to stay stuck, to look at this through negativity and shame and condemnation, or flip it and make this an opportunity for both of you to step into your power.
I absolutely love the theory behind this, and this is what I'm trying to achieve. When it comes to kind of practical things, I find it really hard to apply.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It's because you're so disconnected from her that you may hear this as meaning give in to her. I'm not saying give in to her. I'm saying celebrate her ways and honor her ways, but then show up in your authenticity as well. If you tell her to please clean the dishes and she's out negotiating, you go, okay, let's negotiate, have fun with it, celebrate it, but she still has to do the dishes. She just doesn't have to do it your way at your time, but she has to do them. So when you begin to empower yourself with flexibility and creativity because you have joy now, you're not so rigid and tense, the connection will evolve. And from the connection, the next steps will show up. But if you're disconnected, you cannot talk about practical steps if you're operating out of disconnection. So now work on the connection. The practical steps are the next, right? You cannot get your child to cooperate with you when you're disconnected.
Yeah, it makes sense. So if these are the things that you don't learn or you don't experience, then you need to find out for yourself. Which is tricky, isn't it?
Yes. It is. It is. Well, my book, The Parenting Map, lays it all out step by step. I have a course on it. I have a coaching institute. So there are many opportunities to learn this. You're absolutely right. No one teaches us this. It's moment by moment, trial and error. But thank you so much for coming and sharing. I know many parents will resonate with your story.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh my goodness, I have so done what this mother is doing with her daughter. So I could so relate. And I'm sure many of you can as well. I remember a period in my daughter's life where almost anything she did, I used to judge her. I too used to think, oh my goodness, she's too much. She's out negotiating everything. She's, debating me on everything. And I would judge that as bad. So many of us parents or humans, get into this rut, into this groove of looking at the other's behavior through the eyes of judgment. And we get stuck there. And what that judgment does is not only does it bear heavy on our own hearts, but it also creates this disconnection because the other person feels our judgment and then they shut down. You know it. When a friend judges you, you automatically withdraw from them and you get upset and you may want to rebel. Well, the same thing happens with our children. What I did with my daughter is what I suggested to this mother and to all parents out there. I found a way. I dug deep. I stepped back from the situation and I challenged myself to find another way to reframe her behavior. I found a way to change my judgment to celebration, my shaming and my condemnation to honoring, to power, to something that made me feel as if I was empowering her rather than disempowering her. Each of us holds the power within ourselves to reframe any situation and any behavior. And moving from a disempowering message of judgment and shame to an empowering message of celebration and honor and affirmation changes the game. It moves us from disconnection to connection. And every one of our children deserves a parent who challenges their judgment and reframes judgment to honor, judgment to celebration, and most of all, judgment to acceptance. Coming up next, a mother who is trying to be a super mom, and she's really struggling accepting her limitations. Let's meet Moreen. She's the mother of a 2-year-old son and a 3-month-old daughter, and she's trying to tandem breastfeed both of them and is struggling a little bit. So let's hear from her. Hi, Moreen. I'm so happy you're here.
Hi, Dr. Shefali. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So I hear that you're struggling with breastfeeding both your children and it's taking a toll on you. So tell us a little bit about what's going on.
When I was pregnant with my daughter, I was still nursing my son and still am. And I found that I was starting to get like a really intense nursing aversion, which hadn't ever happened before. And I've heard it's very normal when you're pregnant, when you're nursing another child to like get that aversion. And so a couple months into the pregnancy that started, and it's just a really tough thing to like have him latched on and feel like all these really strong urges to just kind of like obviously wouldn't do this, but kind of like throw him across the room. Like it's just very intense urge of like, just don't want him on me. And I was really hoping that that would go away once I had her and while I'm tandem nursing, because I really feel like it's important to continue nursing him as well. So I wasn't going to let that stop me, and I kind of pushed through, but it's not as intense, but I'm still feeling it occasionally. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now, is just sort of wondering where that could be coming from, if it's normal, if it's kind of something that's telling me, is it time to start weaning, or is it more coming from me? And just kind of confused about all of the different messages and signals my brain's going through right now.
Let's just understand. So you're breastfeeding the girl and the boy still wants to latch on and is not yet weaned. And so sometimes you have both of them on you.
Yes.
Yeah, well, you're incredible. I could barely do one, so I don't even know what you're talking about. So you have some vision, right? You have some ideal situation around this kind of quote unquote attachment parenting, right? You have some ideal fantasy that you want to achieve. So why don't we talk about that, especially in terms of your older child, because he's the one who you're having some reaction to, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So what's your fantasy?
I'm just sort of like earthy, crunchy, natural parent, have kind of always wanted that, thought that I wanted to do extended nursing. So it's kind of been in my mind that I wanted to do this. And I have created some boundaries with him. So he only nurses 3 times a day now, when he wakes up in the morning, for his nap, and then when he goes to bed at night. And so we have night weans. I have set up some boundaries, but I do feel like it's important for the nutrition, and it has been a really great way for him to bond with his sister, even though it's hard sometimes. So there are really a lot of positives to it that I have really appreciated and seen, but I still have the side of it where when he's nursing, sometimes it just feels so uncomfortable, and I feel guilty because I am having these emotions while, I'm holding my babies. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. But I've always kind of wanted that to be the case. I just didn't expect that I would have this aversion at the same time.
Okay, wonderful. So I just want you to know, mother to mother, okay? Woman to woman. I could barely do 6 months of breastfeeding one child. Okay, so you are way out there in terms of filling your children's cup and really providing the connection. I just want you to have some yardsticks, and I'm considered a good parent too. So I didn't become a less of a mother because I could bear it only for 6 months, right? I was so excited when 6 months were over, but I don't consider myself bad or selfish or deficient. And I don't think I traumatized my child. All I'm saying is your narrative is that you need to let him wean when he's ready. And that is a noble narrative. And I think you should hold on to it as long as you like. But just know you're also allowed to have authentic feelings of not wanting to do it, right? This is what the moment to moment life and living brings about, a change. You couldn't have predicted how you would feel, and you would feel this aversion even 7 months ago, maybe.
Yeah.
But now that you're feeling an aversion, it's okay to honor that and welcome that into your awareness without guilt, without self-deprecation and shaming, and just go, you know what? Maybe my body's tired. Maybe it's time to move on. Maybe that's my body's way of saying that, listen, this is too much for you. There's wisdom in what is showing up. And how can you allow your son to still feel connected, but also for you to reclaim your body back? it's okay. You've done your due. You've done more than most parents in the Western world at least would do. So how can you release this burden with a sense of celebration, with a sense of achievement, rather than feeling like you failed at something?
Right. That's a good point. Just when I was applying to be on the show at that time, my son was having some kind of growth spurt or something and was like resisting nap time. And so getting him down was like half an hour more of nursing. And it was too much. I was like, this is crazy. And so at the time I was like, okay, what if I try this crazy experiment and I say, okay, you can have it whenever you want, and I tried it and it was so interesting because I think kind of along the lines of what you're saying is that it's not as much about the nursing itself. It's about how I feel about it and what I'm deciding for myself. Because at the time that I did that, I wasn't sold on it myself. And I was like, I don't want to be nursing all day, but I'm going to try this experiment to see if it helps. And he just became even more needy and like always wanted it and like crying all the time. And I think it was because he could feel those feelings coming from me.
Well, think about it, right? So the first thing you said is that my son was resisting nap time. And so I felt I needed to give it to him even more, and it took longer for him to go to sleep. So again, your son's resistance of nap time means he's ready to grow out of nap time. He's ready to move on. His body is wisely saying, you're too agitated to go to sleep because you don't need to sleep as much as you used to when you were smaller. And I don't think you're honoring the natural things that each of your bodies are communicating and flowing with that. You're resisting it and creating regression. So his body is saying, no more nap time. You're saying, let me now give him more breast, more milk to put him back to sleep. You're keeping him too young. The second thing I want to point out is that when we overdo anything, overparent, over nurture, we actually create an overdependence of the child on us because we are associating ourselves with their self-soothing. So they don't learn to soothe on their own. So actually, when we overdo it, then we are going to create an enmeshment and overdependence. And this is for any child, any parent, any age. Number 3, your body is telling you that you're tired. It's showing up as nursing aversion. Why are you not listening to the wisdom of your body? Why aren't you honoring that maybe you're tired? Maybe it's time to go. The reason that I believe you're not doing it is because you've set this unrealistic, high expectation, and now you're clinging to this narrative that the best way to be a parent is that the child gets to decide. Okay, the child has gotten to decide till now. How much longer? And I think that both the child and you are craving autonomy and empowerment to do this on your own. At this point, you can provide nutrition to your son without your breast milk. It's not the best, but it's pretty darn close because now he's eating other foods. So what the child needs more than anything is a capacity to self-soothe and a connection with you. Now that's the next developmental phase, where you need to teach him how to self-soothe. And maybe he can help the baby soothe. And maybe he can teach the baby how to nurse and soothe and be an assistant to you rather than him being on your breast. It's time for him to grow out of it. I think all the signs are pointing to it. But your ideal vision is what's keeping you stuck.
Yeah, it's wild what your mind can do to you when you get in this like world of you just see it this one way. And when you said that he needs to drop his nap too, which so now he's going down for his nap easier, but he's going to bed at like 10 o'clock at night.
I think what I'm trying to say more than anything is for every parent out there, don't set yourself up with unrealistic visions and ideas and fantasies. Instead, respond to what is occurring in the moment. Attune to the present moment. If, say, tomorrow, your breast milk began to, coagulate and get stuck and it wasn't coming out easily and you couldn't even breastfeed your little infant, don't cling to that as a failure. Instead, flow with another way. Let's flow with life instead of holding on to rigid ideals. People who can't flow will not grow and they will suffer. And that's what you're experiencing because you're stuck on your way of doing things. But you're not listening to the wisdom of what is showing up right now. If it's not working, it's not working. It doesn't matter who you thought you should be. It's who you are. And I'm telling you, very honestly, you're 20 times better in the breastfeeding department than I ever was or wanted to be because it wasn't part of my vision. It's part of yours. So, hallelujah, you've done it now for 2.5 years. It's okay to begin to flow with a new reality, right? Tomorrow, if you have a vision that your son needs to go to a particular kind of school, okay? And be in a particular kind of activity. This is your vision because you believe this is good for his brain, good for his development. Guess what? You put the kid in that school, it turns out to be traumatizing. It turns out to be the worst thing. Are you going to resist the wisdom of the isness? Or are you going to cling to the, it should have been, right? And most of us cling to ideas and then we suffer. So your children are here to teach you to honor who you are, your limitations. It's okay to have limitations. It's okay to be flawed. It's okay for the ideal to not show up because it wasn't going to show up anyway. And it's okay to create new realities in the present moment that work for your new situation. You have a little infant now. So whatever dream you had for your older son, it has to metamorphosize given you have a new child now. So flowing is more wise than having a high expectation and clinging to it. Being self-accepting and self-compassionate is way more wise than being perfect.
I hear you.
Let me ask you a question. Have you been a superachiever most of your life?
Yeah, yes, of course.
Right. You're trying to do everything the best. You're trying to superachieve at parenting and you're going to just exhaust yourself. You know, parenting never ends, right? So you have lots of opportunities to be a superstar. Let's not do it all at once with 2 children under the age of 3. Let's relax on the superachievement right now because you have a long way to go. It's only just begun and you're going to burn out.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I definitely hear you. From that experiment, I guess what I was trying to say, what I felt was that when I went back to the way that we had been doing it and set those boundaries again, he went back to his homeostasis. And I was surprised at that because he's getting less milk, right? And I'm setting boundaries. But because I felt good about it and I felt like it was more manageable for me, that's what comes across. Not that he needs the milk all the time. It's that I'm
Yes.
okay. And so I
Yes.
think that even I hadn't, like, I'm not even, before this, I have not even considered like fully weaning. But I think that if I do, it just the most important thing is like, you know, he might have a hard time with it and it might be a transition, but it's how I feel about it and how my energy about it. And if I'm okay with it and I show him that it's okay and that I'm still there for him, we're going to get through it and he's going to be okay too. And we'll find a new normal.
Let me give you a few ideas. It's not only going to be fantastic and enriching and revitalizing for both of you, it's actually a developmental necessity for him to be able to look for soothing within himself and not keep coming to you. It's actually the next step of his development that you are actually sabotaging. So one idea is get really cute bottles, tell him to buy his best cute little bottles like his sisters, put your own milk in it, just a little bit, and leave it all over the house and tell him, a big boy now, you're a big boy. You're not like this little baby. You're a big boy. You can go find the milk instead of coming here and make it a game, make it exciting, make it a developmental success and an achievement. You can check it off, let him find the bottle, then drink the bottle and check it off and go big boy, step number 1, big boy, step number 2. And you can gently make it about success rather than rejection or disconnection or pushing him away. Teach him to lean into the next step of his own development.
Okay. Yeah. That was going to be my next question was what language do you use with a 2.5-year-old on why he can't have milk anymore? So,
well, he can. You're just now providing him more options, which he will then grow into and come to you less.
yeah.
You're not stopping him here. You're showing him, you know what big boys do? You're going to be 2 years and 7 months tomorrow, right? Make it on a day that's important. And look at these bottles. They're all for you. One in every room. I'm going to hide them. So the next time you want me, instead of coming for me, let's see if you can find the bottle and have that milk first. And then you can hug him and kiss him, and then he can help you with the baby. And slowly, a day or two can pass and he's barely coming to you anymore. And it'll naturally fade away. But don't put a limitation on you now that he has to stop by a certain date. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm just suggesting to give him more alternatives to self-soothe and feel like a bigger boy than a baby who needs to cling to you. I thought it was your breast milk that you were so attached to. Well, if it's not your breast milk anyway, then hey, you're ready. I mean, connection can be established in so many other ways.
Yeah. And that's been kind of the transition when we night weaned him and went down just the 3 times a day, is that we're just finding other ways to connect and other ways to find soothing. And occasionally it's not working out where I can nurse him to sleep because my daughter's awake and the nap times don't line up. And so there has been moments where, I say, I'll tuck you in, and I tuck him in the bed like a burrito, and I walk around the room and I tell him a story, and he can fall asleep that way. Maybe going that route of more often, kind of like, instead of falling asleep with the milk, we, do a little bit and then get him to sleep in a different way. And then, because that's mostly what it is now, is just to fall asleep or when he first wakes up in the morning. But yeah, it's exciting. I'm excited about it because I hear what you're saying. And I do think that he is in a big shift right now. I can tell that he's growing so fast, and he's just like opening up to the world. And he has a lot of really big emotions. And I wonder if this would help him, even though it sounds counterintuitive to me a little bit, that if this would help him feel more secure and more confident and independent. So
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing.
Thank you so much.
This mother's story brought up so many feelings within me because, like her, I too wanted to be a super achievement mother, a super achiever. I wanted to be the best mother possible. I wanted to make all organic food and give smoothies every day. And then, guess what? I got exhausted. I burned myself out. And I had a really hard time transitioning to just being a good enough mother. And for every parent out there, I'm sure you can relate that when we transition from being the fantasy parent that we think we should be to becoming just a really ordinary parent, we feel a sense of loss. But actually, in doing this, the potential opportunities that we can set our children free and allow them to discover their own super achievement. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, make sure you subscribe, share it with those you love, and I will see you on the next episode of Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. Parenting and You with Dr. Shefali is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical, psychological, psychotherapeutic, coaching, healthcare, or other qualified professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment.